And we are back with our review discussion of Masks, the next generation, a new generation, not the next generation. That's X-Men. What is it?
Star Trek.
Star
Star
Trek.
Trek. That
Star
one.
Trek.
Yeah. No.
Or X-Men.
Um. So what is Masks?
It's powered by the superheroes.
Yeah.
A superhero game about relationship and teenagers unable to handle emotions.
Yeah.
And
It is a
superpowers.
superhero teen drama game. Mostly, I would say it actually is. It feels a lot like it's about teen drama because it's equally about that as much as it is about superheroics, and that's unusual.
I feel like I'm going to push back on that a little bit. It seems to me the game isn't really about teenagers. The game says it's about teenagers, and it really feels like the mechanics push towards the game is about struggling against some a force bigger than yourself. In this game's specific example, it's adult. In general, all adults can shut down every plan, and you need to like actively work around them. It feels like a game about using powers to show the force of like I'm working against some like oppressive force, not really, but like pressure, exterior
Identity.
pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, pressure and identity more than being specifically about teen stuff. It
That's
uses
true.
it feels like it uses the teen stuff as more of a way to explain like, no, you're not quite at the apex of society yet. You don't really have your hands on any gears or turning pieces. You can just simply run around the
Yeah, it's a game about
messed up super world.
change and
If I-
metamorphosis and figuring out who you are.
Yeah, it's a game about people that do not have power within the system, figuring out how the system works, how to work within the system, and who they are within that system.
If I had to argue about that, I'd say there's a little bit of a divide. When I look at all the moves, a lot of the moves are about the superheroics, the fights, how do we deal with the system. When I look at the, I guess, HP system of conditions, with angry, afraid, guilty, that's where I can see a lot more teenager done in it. Because as those conditions fluctuate a significant more often, it does feel more like teen drama to me than something that would make as much sense if we just said, say, aged up to adult.
I think
Speaking as the oldest person in the room, yeah, people still act like that at my age. It doesn't change.
no, it's it's a the right way to put it is if this is teen fiction and teen drama from a TV show genre perspective, um, in that the types of struggles and problems and obstacles that we're likely to encounter are the types that would be on that type of in that type of story. Um, Adult characters in stories do still change and stuff, but it's less common to have this kind of identity struggle for every character in an adult story.
Finding yourself is not the default thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think part of that for me is I just kind of about the like conditions as HP. I kind of like the conditions because they tell you what your character's feeling, but using them as HP kind of I don't want to say breaks the immersion for it because it's a story game, so you're supposed to be thinking at a slightly higher than in the middle of it level, but it kind of like undermines some of the point of me getting the conditions when it's HP because I don't know, it's a super combat game with because that's what the moves are. Um so I just get punched a bunch and I run out of things that make sense for the situation. I just pick guilty and
The
there's
fact that the
that.
names of the conditions are prescribed.
Yeah, the names are prescribed. And unlike in other games where there's when you take one, you roll and it tells you how it like affects the outcome. When it's just take a condition and I just take. Honestly, I'd rather it say hurt for like just take a wound or whatever, and then have the feelings bar be disconnected. just because when it's HP and I get 4 already, it's like these are all the feelings I would have in this situation. But now I'm insecure too, I guess, whatever.
Yeah, I
I-
think
The HP is just too fluctuating, in my opinion, for the conditions to like really have a meaningful.
And I mean, I understand the reason behind it because you get the condition, and there are things you can do to break the condition off of you, and that helps create the drama as you move forward, interpersonal conflict and whatnot.
Mm.
But it doesn't allow you to pace that, right? Because if you being angry is a part of a scene for your character, you don't get to showcase that before you're like, no, I need to get rid of this because I need to be able to do more things, and I'm almost maxed out on conditions. So you just do anything to get rid of it rather than the poignant thing you can do.
you're not incentivized to be angry or play into your conditions. You're incentivized to do one big thing to express your condition in such a way that it removes it, and you're no longer angry suddenly.
Yeah.
Mm.
I got that.
Yeah, it disconnects a little bit, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
I feel like it just makes people seem, and I don't know if this is the right way to describe it, but it makes people seem bipolar more than it does.
That's also teen fiction, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, roses and thorns about this specific topic. On the other hand, I do feel like that whiplash between like, oh, I got hurt, my feelings are injured, I'm gonna smash this vase to get over it immediately, does really force combat explanation therapy, which does fit in the genre, like mid-combat therapy session, does make an appearance with some of these in the form of flashbacks or talking your problem out or whatever because you're
infamous
incentivized to. So that's very cool that like, yeah, it's kind of a rough mechanic sometimes, but the plus side is you get the silly combat therapy.
I do like that you aren't fully in control of your feelings as a character as well. You get to pick which condition to pick, but you don't get to say that you're suddenly feeling fine about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think the thing I like most about the condition system is, again, it pushes you to make the dramatic move that's actually going to make things worse. Yeah, you're going to clear a condition, but some of the most epic moments come from, I've cleared a condition and now everyone on my team hates me because I hurt them so badly to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we had any deep moments of that in this game that I'm remembering off the top of my head.
I think we had a couple
Started
during
out,
family
but-
dinner, actually. But
Yeah, we did. But I
the
liked that
incentives
it's
are well
pushing you
written
towards
in that they say you don't just express it, you have to do something that is effectively irreversible
Yeah.
to clear a condition.
Mhm.
Even if you can deal with it later, you can't ever really undo it from being done.
Mm-hmm.
You have to break something fully. You have to run away from something hard. Things like that.
and the other thing that on the condition thing that bothers me a little bit is that, sure, if you do a thing that inflicts a condition mechanically, you can be angry. But what if something just pisses me off?
Yeah,
Like it takes away the narrative anger of something rather than the mechanical infliction of it.
I would like if there was a mechanic for willingly taking a condition for something. This could be take a condition to get +1 forward on a roll and a potential or something like that. Maybe that's too big of a reward. I don't know. But
I would go the other way, where the move is when angry. If not angry, ticket now.
yeah,
There
something like
actually
that.
are
And
a few
then-
moves like that.
There are a couple advanced moves like that. We'll talk about advanced
Yeah.
moves. They're inconsistent.
Wasn't there another game we played with conditions where there was a plus and a minus? Like if
That
you're
was-
angry, you're was it Avatar? Did Avatar do that?
I don't know.
I don't
Plus and minus
think
would be
so.
fun.
I don't remember a plus
Yeah.
and a minus from a condition. But I could be wrong.
But I mean, that's how you
So-
could balance that out, right? Because you unleashing your powers or directly engaging an enemy when you're angry becomes better. But these other things suffer.
Let me check City
You
of
know.
Mists. It might have been that one.
Might have been City of Mist.
So yeah, now all we need is to tag in, instead of combat therapy, to clear conditions combat story.
It
To
is City of
clear.
Mist. Yeah. So conditions are basically the singular core biggest mechanic, I think.
Yeah.
But they're not the only one. I'd say followed by that is labels and how influence interacts with those labels. Instead of stats, you have 5 factors of identity. You are a freak, savior, danger, a superior, or a mundane. It's some of them work for A, some of them work without an A at the beginning, but either way, those are the 5, and they change over time.
Again, a
Yeah,
thing
so-
that I really like about this game is how frequently they change. You can min-max to a point, try and get your stats so that, yeah, superior is always my best stat, and so I'm going to try and roll that. But it's so easy for you to be influenced and then have somebody else change your labels. So you don't have full control over, I'm best at this, I want to roll this. It forces you into situations where to do the thing you want to do, you either have to do it in a weird way or just roll something you're worse at. Maybe you were good at it before, but the situation has changed.
The part of that I like is the act selfishly, where it's
Hmm.
you are better at it because you need to be in the moment for the story. So now you are better at that thing, but now you're retroactively worse at other things. So even if you were dangerous before, in this fight you are dangerous, and that carries until it changes.
Yeah. I like how when you do advance, one of the things you can do is lock one of those labels, which kind of fits into the whole teenage drama sort of thing, where it's like, this is something I feel secure in. Like, yes, I am 3 freak. You can't tell me I'm not a freak. I feel this way.
Yeah, where a part of your identity sets and solidifies and can no longer be
Yeah.
changed.
I think that's really good. That just sort of reinforces that idea.
Yeah.
So all very good points. I hate to be the downside, but since we got 3 positives, I do have 1 negative on this. When labels change like that and they make someone that is spec'd into, hey, I took all of these moves that make it so I can roll freak for this thing.
A lot of the moves are that. Let's talk about advanced moves soon.
It is incumbent on all involved to make that character's act too, right? Like that's got to be your empire, where like you're just failing at everything. It's awful. It's bad for you, and it shows, right? And I think that's where the drama builds. But it's something that players need to be cognizant of and take advantage of to build a deeper story.
Yeah. Failure is usually more interesting in this game than success, I would say.
Because you also get XP, basically.
You do also get XP, but also
We get so much
in a
XP.
superhero. We'll talk. Okay, let's talk about advancement next, because we keep saying we'll talk about advancement.
We'll get there.
But in a superhero story, usually, if you succeed, you catch the villain and then the scene ends effectively. Like, not completely, but like you progress towards that. It's clean. Even a 7 to 9 in this game is, I would say, more often than not, fairly clean. A 6 minus is when things start getting complicated. Most of the moves are like something bad happens on a 7 to 9, but usually it's very controlled as to what bad happens. So
Yeah,
I think,
can't you pick some of them too?
well, yeah, overcome an obstacle or change the environment for that move, which is unleash your powers. You can, on a 7 to 9, either have it not happen quite like you want, or just take a condition instead of any twist. And that's what we saw happen in the finale half an hour ago. And it worked there. It is a good choice. But what it means is that a 7 to 9 isn't a success with a twist so much as it is a success with a bruise. Narratively, usually only a 6 minus is when things start to escalate.
However, with those 6 minuses comes potential. It comes XP. It comes the way to level up, which I know other people at least really have appreciated. Oh no, I failed my roll. Things are getting worse. But at the same time, I'm getting points towards my goodies of leveling up faster.
Mm-hmm. Masks is made by the same designer. I don't remember their name. I can go check, but for now, Masks is made by the same designer who was the main designer on Avatar Legends. And I think some of our criticisms of that game also actually show here, but less extreme. It feels like it's some of the flaws we felt were in Avatar Legends are also present in Masks, but less strongly and less apparently. The big one that I've experienced over multiple campaigns is the design of advancement and the many of the advanced moves. Sometimes, for certain types of characters, I have many interesting advanced moves that I want to choose from, both within my playbook and others. But for certain other types of characters, I have felt that there are very few choices that interest me. Is that
I want
how
a
other
big
people
skill
have
list.
felt?
Every time I play this game, which is now twice, I've wanted a giant skill list that I can granularly advance, as opposed to having to take big deal-breaking moves. Because the deal-breaking moves are cool, and I'm glad we have them. But I can only take so many, because then I have like 17 hammers for one nail. And in a story game, I need one hammer.
Yeah.
And I think in this game, my hammer should be superpowers.
I have moves that I've never managed to use because they haven't come up. Or, like Zen mentioned, for the Star playbook, every single move I can pick goes off of Superior. That's it. That's the one stat. And I'm like, but I didn't want to build a Superior Star. So what do? You have to pick essentially at least one move from that playbook moving forward to get to the second tier of moves for adult moves, and you only really have 2 abilities to pick out of playbook. So you're kind of just running down the clock with, I guess I'll choose this, and I guess I'll unlock my moment of truth, just so that you can. Advancement gets less exciting because you aren't necessarily wanting or feeling limited in the things that you do want, which is moves from other playbooks.
Do we know that the star is made by the same designer?
I believe so.
Okay, because I know it was made afterwards as a.
I think it
Yeah,
is still
it is
some of the
official.
official packs, though.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's also
Halcyon
kind of the
City
thing
High, I
about
see.
that's also kind of the thing about a lot of these Powered by the Apocalypse hacks is that they have, especially the bigger ones, they have a group working on them, which is cool. And this can also happen if a single person writes them too.
Yeah.
The playbooks can sometimes feel like they were written first, which is how also I would approach this too, so you know what you're trying to write a game about. But it leaves some of the mechanics feel disconnected, especially if, like, oh, it just feels like, especially with a lot of the moves having the similar kind of vibes, but swapping around different stats. Kind of think that, like, these are the moves we wrote to fill in the gaps, so everyone has their full list of checkboxed moves. And some of the, like, bigger game mechanics undermine some of the, like, nitty-gritty specific hero moves.
If I was to summarize, what we're saying about the moves, as far as I'm hearing, it is Masks already starts you off mechanically with everything you need to succeed, and then it kind of just keeps giving you more that you don't need in terms of moves. And it already has a solid toolbox that isn't missing anything. And many of the advanced moves for some of the classes. I think actually the Nova is not. I don't think that quite applies to the Nova. Their moves are different.
Yeah.
We haven't played with the Doomed, but those are also very different. Like several of the playbooks, that isn't true about, but several of the playbooks we played with, have moves that feel like they're um, padding. I guess that's a weird way to put padding because I'm used to it for pacing, applying that term to pacing,
Yeah.
but moves that feel nice to have, but you don't know if you're ever going to use them for sure.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
incredibly situational. Like I picked up a move at character creation, never used it.
Yep.
Oof.
It does feel like they're trying to like fit the archetype of the character the playbook's trying to like emulate, but it's also very limiting in that sense, right? Like I know there's a game I looked at, I forget what it was called, but it was basically like superhero Blades in the Dark, and that was like the more extreme version of this, where like you could tell
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, this is the Superman playbook, this is the
Yeah.
Is that
Batman playbook,
Worlds in
right?
Peril?
yeah, it was Worlds in
Yeah.
Peril.
Okay.
I
Because
think
that
part
was
of that's
this is the Avengers. It was
Yeah.
literally everyone.
Yeah.
I think part of that's just a genre problem with superheroes. They don't advance granularly. Superheroes advance in leaps and bounds in between major plot arcs. Otherwise, they kind of stay consistent and then peak and then consistent and then drop and or peak again,
And I
depending on
think
the next issue. So I would almost like a series of, honestly, as long as we're spitballing like setups, like a series of playbooks that are connected as these are the protege playbooks that you flip through as you go. Is that a lot more
or
designing
just
to do?
tiers of
Yes.
like, here's your tier 1 moves, choose one of these 4,
Yeah, and
and
then you
then
lose all tier 1 moves and you get the tier 2 moves,
or
and then you lose all.
yeah, something
And
where
there's like
that
some power up copies or whatever, but like you're
it would
maxed
fit
at 4 moves.
as a teen in even teen superhero stuff. Most teen superheroes are still figuring their powers and potential and what they can do out. They have more granular advancement compared to adult superheroes usually.
Mhm.
True.
And
But usually just for their
yeah, but still there is more granular advancement usually.
Yeah.
But the mechanics of this don't reflect that. They feel like the pacing of advancement feels like what you described for an adult hero.
Yeah.
but sped up, because even in, I understand we went slightly ham with the things, but even in a normal game you're gonna get in 6 episodes 3 moves.
And not to mention, many characters start with 2 or 3 out of 6 at character creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then you only have another usually 3 to 5 to choose from your whole playbook, plus other
But then on the
move options. But still,
Yeah, you
yeah
could choose
Well,
like
it's
2 moves from another playbook,
Ad-
and
advancements usually though are limited from your own playbook as well. Like what I'm looking at right now, you can only get 2 advancements from your own playbook. The rest of the options are other things.
mm-hmm.
It's just usually that, okay, you've picked 2 to start, you have 5 options total. I picked the 2 in my playbook that I liked, why would I pick the other 3 again?
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah
I already
and this
had
is
those
not
options
even
in
a
that order.
this isn't even like a masks thing, because I feel this way about a lot of Power by Apocalypse games. As much as I like the story system, the characters leave something for me.
Yeah, the lack of being able to fit the concept, like with the star, right? The simple fix for that is to have some GM advice in there that says, "Hey, do you want a mundane star? Well, switch out superior with mundane."
Yeah.
You know,
When it comes to the playbooks, I think part of this is a problem with me. I think the playbooks are really good at doing the archetypes. I will watch superhero media, pause it, and say, oh yes, that's a bull character, and have lots of really fun discussions trying to fit them into Mask's playbooks. The playbooks have their archetypes really well. That
Yeah,
being
though they
said,
do.
I instinctively twist every playbook I come across, and I've played about 4 games or 4 different things of masks now. These masks playbooks do not twist. Just like Avatar, if you try and do any twist to the playbooks, they break. It does not work. So unfortunately, it doesn't
Yep.
work too well with my playstyle, but really good
We also saw that slightly with your character, Indigo, since Morg is someone who literally at your epilogue was, "Congratulations, you murdered your master" as the protege.
He killed me first. It
It's
seems
true.
fair.
He did kill you first.
You did the classic Sith thing, you know?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
master trained you, you took over your master. Now you need an apprentice who will kill you and continue the cycle.
Yep.
That which is dead may never die.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know, but like, I mean, I do the same thing. I look at a class and I think, what's the silliest thing I could play with this class in any game? Because that's really, like, I want to play an interesting character, and honestly, fighters are boring. A fighter who throws chickens, less boring.
A fighter who throws flaming chickens. Now that's a restaurant
Overpowered.
chain.
No, that's too overpowered. I can't have actual tactical utility.
No.
Yeah, I ran against type a little bit in building my character, playing the newborn. That playbook wants you to be a goddamn robot. It just does. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Beep boop, I'm a robot.
Yeah.
It wants you to be a very specific thing. All of these.
And it says, I guess you can be a clone too.
Yeah.
Even that, not really. The moves didn't make sense with it.
I know, it just pays lip service to the clone. It's like, clone's technically an option, but, you know, robot.
Yeah. The playbooks are not that
there a
flexible.
good
If you like
is
the
there
playbook...
Is there a good cyborg?
Transformed, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Depending on how you want to play your cyborg, yeah. I mean, you could be a Nova cyborg, too.
Could be a Nova.
Wouldn't matter.
Could be a Bull, depending on how you play him.
Yep.
I think that the things that the playbooks define most is what is the character arc that your character is going to go through. The problem is that it kind of ties that to powers sometimes, but it's really focused on, okay, what is the character arc that you're wanting to dive into? For the Star, the character arc is your relationship with media. For the Nova, your relationship is how do you feel when things go bad and you destroy.
How do you feel about collateral damage?
Exactly.
The proteges argue with dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The legacy is argue with dad and grandma.
But oddly enough, it's hard to actually play into those issues in game because they're not necessarily issues that you fit well in combat.
Yeah, or even just like mundane crime solving.
Yeah.
There is no move to solve a crime.
No.
Which is very strange.
Yep. We bypass that intentionally by making one of our characters' powers detective work, so you could roll to use your superpowers to overcome an obstacle. We had to bend over backwards for that to work, and it did work well when we did that. But if you play this, the investigate a situation move that everyone has access to is investigate basically a fight scene or other imminent, urgent, dangerous situation, but there is no general investigative not footwork.
Legwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like it's very much on the GM. It's not, here's a subtle lead, it's here's a ham-fisted lead because you can't investigate it any other way.
The GM is just going to tell you what happens. And that's fine. It just isn't... From what I remember, I don't think the book says that clearly enough about this frequent question in the game.
Yeah, there are some superheroes that do just keep fighting the whole time. Not specifically fighting, but like, they do something else. Oh, the villain shows up now, we fight. Oh, got away. Back later, and they fight again, because the action is on the villain for some reason.
Yeah, this is less a like Batman prep time sort of like investigation and more like a Sherlock Holmes mid-fight scene going like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do that. He's limping, I can hit him here, right?
The book does say that like the mundane should never be that mundane, and if the characters are at the mall shopping, have a supervillain attack the mall by the end of the scene. It
Yeah,
has
the
a
game
very
wants
much
you to throw villains.
yeah, and I think that's in tone, almost a bit too much for our preferences. I can't say that's inherently a flaw because that is playing to genre. Um,
It's playing to genre, and in the game's defense, it does cover the bases of players who aren't actively getting themselves in trouble.
Yeah.
Because
which is
most of us are
most
prone to
players.
doing a fun, yeah. But like some players don't want to, like, if they're being cautious at all, they're not going to run into trouble unless the trouble like shows up. Like the game's default is trouble arrives.
So
Yeah.
this sort of feeds back into my thing of this isn't actually anything to do with superheroes at all. Because
Nope.
yeah, they give you powers to quickly and easily get through that fight, but the focus isn't on even the villain's actions really, it's your reactions to outside stimulus.
Yeah.
So we'll just hand wave all of the, flashy stuff with a couple of rolls, but let's now dig into why Rachel made you angry during the last fight.
Yeah. There's a reason our most dramatic scene in our campaign was a family dinner with the team invited
really
to
was.
it. It was great. It's what Masks thrives in, I think, is that. And I think that it only sometimes treats the superhero stuff as a lens through which to view that, but sometimes it also wants to be a superhero game primarily, and that's where I think it doesn't work super well for us, pun not intended.
Yeah,
Which
but then on the other
kinda makes me-
hand, drama's hard. Like, doing a dramatic scene's harder to do than doing a, like, we're gonna fight something cool.
The game tries its hardest to, like, give you that fuel to have dramatic moments. I will say that.
Yeah, this is definitely a game that I can't say more than most, but more than any of the popular ones, is love it or hate it. Because I kind of still love this game, even with all the flaws we're talking about. And even though I see and feel those flaws, it usually works for me.
With giving the tools to create that drama, it makes me again kind of think a little bit about creating the character and creating the world, the questions of how are you related and whatnot. It really does give you the tools in that it wants you always to be pinging off each other. I'm angry at you. I have hurt this other player. I think in the GM advice, there's a big focus on PC, NPC triangles where you're always pulling at each other. It feels like it's intended to have a very small cast of characters, maybe one and a weak villains, but the real story is how the team relates to one another. And I think that it's variable depending on how the game is played and what people are interested in playing in that story with how easily those ties come into being.
Yeah. During the first session, I'd say the game does a good amount of work establishing how you guys know each other. What it doesn't do is make a good impression over how you guys feel about each other. When our first team first came together is a section in every playbook. Everyone gets to add one thing for that is basically filling in the pilot episode that already happened before the game starts. But it's very much focused on events and action. That part isn't directly focused on feeling. There is another part of the playbook that talks about influence, but it, in my opinion, doesn't go super in depth. It's just more about basically how much do you care about your team in general, for the most part, or the idea of the team. But the playbooks themselves don't establish emotional connection to the rest of the team, I'd say.
In part, I'd almost like to play that introduction that we skip over just because that would kind of give us the feelings behind. We might know the actions and how that's going to go, but the emotions behind meeting your teammates usually matter quite a lot.
Yep.
So skipping over it feels a little weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or even adding like a I'm just thinking about Avatar, but like you know how you have that sliding scale for like what your
Balance?
character,
Yeah.
like that balance. Just make it like how you feel about other characters, right? Is it a positive feeling or a negative feeling? And then based on that sliding
Yeah.
scale could relate to like the labels or something.
Instead of
they're trying
influence
to-
being a binary, have it be an actual like modifier, -3
Yeah.
to +3.
That would work well. Um,
Oh, I just have been thinking about a superhero one-shot where everyone makes characters ahead of time, and then you randomly assign one or two of them to be a villain, and then you just do
Ooh.
like
the
every
game.
player makes 2 characters basically.
No, they make one.
So
You
one
make
player
Oh,
one
but it's
plays the
PvP?
villain.
And then you show up in media res, and then you get assigned, oh, there's a disaster. Who's causing it? One of you.
Interesting.
But as another way to do like an intro thing for a superhero thing where you automatically set up the tension that way.
Yeah. This game has a mechanic that we never touched. Adult moves. Moves that you take as you grow up. Part of the main reason we never touched them is because you need to basically be very well advanced in terms of XP and potential to be able to start taking them. And it felt like we were already... Honestly, it feels like if I was to make a change, it feels like those should be available from the start. Or maybe just after you use your first moment of truth or something like that. In general, they felt... I've never seen them used in any game I've played with maybe a single roll of one exception across, I think, 5 campaigns now.
You know what I would like for adult moves? If I had an adult move XP bar that was like 12 pips or whatever, so then I have to pick, do I work on growing up or do I work on more cool shit for my character?
I honestly, as much as I abhor GM fiat in a game, this is a story game. So you should earn those moves when the GM says you did a thing that makes it so you can use this move now.
That's a
Like-
totally viable thing.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know if I like that because I like my ticking boxes. If I was to do a ticking box, I would tie it to the amount of times you attempted to reject influence. Actually, no, the amount of times someone influenced you. Every time your influence changes, maybe, tick a box, because then you're being formed, or maybe rejecting being formed, by society into a person. That's probably what I would do. But either way, right now it's so inaccessible that I think I've almost never heard anyone talk about them amongst discourse about the game. But it feels like it's supposed to be really important. It's supposed to be, this is how you actually talk to people like a reasonable person. This is how you deal with stuff like a competent person. This is how
I think you are very much supposed to grow into them as this is the height of achievement. You have successfully grown up in this one way. Congratulations, you've reached endgame.
Yeah, it's
But-
you have become the child's view of the adult is what you have actually become. The person who is confident and capable and can handle stuff and knows who they are and has no issues at all, definitely.
But once again, this is a hindsight thing or reaction to the concept. It's still a cool idea to
I
have
love
like
the
moves
idea.
that are specifically like, all right, you're a big kid now. Here's your big kid move. As much as I said the teenage stuff felt more like an allegory, this does a good job of reinforcing it. There is an
Yeah.
adult goal, even if you never get there. There is an adult move or thing that like you can strive for. There is actually like
The
a way an
existence
adult and
of the existence of a talk reasonably move that you can't do right now has a lot of implications as to how you can effectively communicate at the start.
yeah.
It's great. I just wish that we could actually go through the process of slowly unlocking them, and it felt like we didn't.
I guess more directed unlocking as opposed to, okay, take 5 moves from other things that you don't really want so you can have access to this. Something more directed of, hey, look, I'm actively putting effort towards unlocking
Yeah.
this move.
I am
That's
growing
why.
up.
So I can do
One way
something
or the
other
other.
than
Actually,
other
assigning
than
each
provoke.
adult move an XP trigger,
Yeah.
Yeah?
and you have to hit 5 XP in that with that trigger, and you're good.
Yeah.
Because that makes character growth. It mechanically rewards character growth.
Once you do
Even
this,
moving
you
some of the
get that
triggers from
enough times, you get that move.
even moving some of the triggers from clearing conditions.
That could be a whole
Yeah, you
game,
could
by
say,
the way.
like-
You could design an entire game around a modular playbook with hundreds of moves that you unlock slowly over time. Anyways, that's the game design thought for later.
so
Yeah,
many
I mean,
playbooks.
That would be so fucking fiddly. It would take years.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Playing
do
it would
the-
be easy because you could literally just print it on the back of the playbook. You could make most of the mechanics pretty streamlined. You could fit it on one page with a significant list on the back that you gotta check off as you go.
It's burning wheel, tracking your skill checks kind of thing.
I love this idea. I love checkbox advancement as a concept so much, where I gotta do a bunch of weird garbage that reinforces the fact I can shoot lasers out of my belly button. That's Havoc,
it's a
right?
complete it's a complete
That's Havoc.
tangent. I do
I'm
want
trying
to
to
make
describe Havoc.
I do want to make some kind of game where advancement is done through drawing patterns on your character sheet, but weird esoteric
Ooh.
ones. Anyways,
Connect
that's for later.
4.
Something like that. Closest thing right now is Tales of, or the Ragnarok game, the Viking game, but that's not quite the same.
Fate of the Norns.
Fate of the Norns. That is.
Yeah.
So, Masks is the game we are talking about.
Yes.
I was a GM for that. We briefly talked about NPC triangles. I think that NPC triangles are actually really good and really important because they are, I think, a lot of what this game relies upon to keep player characters interacting with each other is by linking them via a shared NPC. It is a PC NPC PC triangle is basically every NPC should have some kind of relationship with at least 2 PCs. It doesn't have to be an existing relationship, but they should be actively interacting with them. So, this didn't come up so much in our game, but the closest thing and the idealized one would actually be Void's brother became Solar's boyfriend. That is quintessential.
Classic love
relationship.
triangle.
Yeah, I think.
No, it's not.
Void to
but
Solar.
Okay.
Yes, I forgot. Void had a crush on Solar. Yes, it is.
I was gonna say the triangles. Those are 2 different triangles.
Those are 2
It's a love angle, but they're normally called love triangles for some reason.
It's not a polygon. It sort of did this.
It's a love. I guess that's a V. It's a love V. Anyways,
the NPC triangle thing makes sense.
They're great
because the players automatically interact when they both care about the same person for whatever reason.
Yep. That's really good. The other 2 big features of the GM, other than like how to play and how to GM stuff for Power of the Apocalypse, which is relatively normal, very well done, good advice. Nothing to say about it that you haven't, that applies specifically to Masks. But the other 2 things are villains and how it handles those, and arcs, which is how it handles general prep. Villains are tricky because all of the things you described about conditions, villains have conditions too. Except they can't actually take all conditions. Villains, if they're a minor villain, they can only take 2 or 3 conditions out of the same prescribed list. You pre-choose. This one can only feel guilty, angry, or insecure. They will never feel afraid. They will never feel this. And it feels very restrictive, I found, because I don't know what situations they're going to be in. This villain is minor, and even if they're very strong and don't usually feel afraid, you guys can very easily put them in a situation where I think it makes no sense for them to be afraid. Also, it's usually interesting to have characters feel afraid of you. because they react in specific ways. But that's one example. Um, it felt like a decent way to track how beat up a villain was, but it didn't feel like it made sense for the emotions of a villain. Because those aren't teenagers figuring out their feelings. They're usually adults, and they usually, um, while they are having emotions, they're not usually figuring out who they are. So, I found that tricky. Oh, we lost. Marissa's on her way back. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think she closed it and rejoined because she's been like
Yeah, I saw.
hopping.
So I think I like the idea of villains, but conditions was tricky for them. Now, Masks provides a specific rule, which is whenever a villain takes a condition, they then immediately act from a prescribed list of things. If they get angry, kind of like what players have, here's some things to clear the condition. Instead, GMs have, when they take the condition, they immediately do one of these things, and you choose what. I also found that kind of restrictive, to be honest, as well. I like the idea of it to make it so it's not just you guys all kicking the old man as they're down kind of thing. But in terms of fictional positioning, it feels like it breaks that a bit. And though I like it in theory, and I like that it gives ideas for what to do, in practice, I found I preferred often to ignore it. Did you notice any of those as players? Did you notice any of those things that I did as a GM or didn't do as a GM?
I
I
think the first
noticed a
episode.
couple of times. I noticed a couple of times when we gave a condition, they would immediately act, and it kind of felt a little bit frustrating because I'm like, but I wanted to do something in the scene, and oh, the scene has moved on so quickly that I can't actually do the thing I wanted to do anymore because we have moved past it. And a lot of the time, I think that may have been from they're immediately reacting.
Yeah, that's usually what it was. I guess it's kind of like this weird way to try and balance action economy in a game without strict actions. Spotlight economy, basically. But I feel that making it a hard and fast rule didn't work for me and for us.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it'd almost be better if you had like two different tiers of enemies. So like you have goons, which are one health state, and then if you have like a supervillain, they are like X amount more. You know?
Well,
yeah,
that's what they did in Avatar.
and
Like
that's
that was the
Yeah.
evolution of this.
that's
That's
kind
true.
of what they do here. Only like individual villains have any of that. Other than those villains, no NPCs, including heroes, have anything tracked, including goons. I wouldn't call them villains if they're a goon. I would just either make them part of the amalgamation of the villain itself, like with malaria we encountered during our campaign. Most of the people that were possessed and weird mosquito people, they were um, just a part of his total villain like sheet. They were an extension of him.
Yeah.
But
The only goons we saw were wizard scum, so.
yeah, and they weren't villains. They didn't even have a name. Villains. Step one of a villain, even in the book, I believe, is they need a name. So that was just purely narrative at that point.
It seems like the villain situation could be easily cleared up with just a clock.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and the goons become part of that clock. You
Yeah.
know?
Something like that. But yeah, either way, it didn't. Villains didn't work out so well in terms of how the game handles them. Arcs are interesting. That's the third thing. That's basically GM prep, long-term planning, campaign. They are very well done. A well done way of prepping continuous escalation in typical superhero sense of the stakes in a way that usually doesn't like it's still the way that the stakes are written in arcs accounts for you guys actively doing stuff, um, and usually means that even though you're doing stuff to stop it, um, it's very likely that it'll still progress normally because basically the first two steps of the three-step arc is setup. Step one is the starting step. Step two is everyone gears up to do the thing that is step three, and step three is okay. The thing's actually happening. The bad things are happening. Um, it's pretty. I don't want to say straightforward. Um, I will say it's not subversive. It fits the game and tone. It's helpful. And it's all background stuff. Because the superhero plot stuff, as we've talked about before, isn't what's interesting to us.
More interesting to the game. Like the game cares more about what you do in the arc.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How does your character grow? How do they change? How have they hurt others or themselves?
Yeah. Um, hooks are something I forgot to mention. Hooks are great. Hooks are that emotional thing. Um, you choose two labels. You create a hook per PC. A hook is made up of two labels, and you pull the PC between those two labels, usually using specific NPCs or external factors to repeatedly embody those two labels and try to tell the PC they should be this, and have other people tell the PCs that same PC they should be this instead. Um, I think that for what this game is about, it's really good for as a GM prep tool. Um, it's not something that you guys personally experienced in terms of you wouldn't see it or read it, but from my own prep and how I presented characters, I think it was very very useful. So for
It's a
GMs
helpful tool to
who are
define
GMing this,
motivation.
it's um it is the highest that and NPC triangles are the two things that I would never miss out on.
Good technology.
Yeah. Anyways, that's the GM section. That's how I felt about GMing the game. I enjoyed it. Uh, Relatively low prep. It took me it takes me like 15 minutes of prep for a session, roughly, to have a good session. Um, and the book is helpful for doing this, but not everything is equally helpful. Do you want to talk about the book itself? Have we read the book itself? Because there's a lot of like shorthand playbooks and references. Has anyone else read the full book?
Not cover to cover, only because I mentioned it last time. This book definitely has the art director polish to it,
Yeah.
where which Magpie always does a good job at they have a team of artists in house, I'm pretty sure. But it all seems very cohesive. The playbooks have cool little city motifs at the top. Like the book looks nice. It is kind of wall of texty at some points, but it's still a game manual, so you can only do so much to elude the fact that you are just dumping a wall of text on someone and hoping they through it enough to play the game. I
Yeah.
think they did a job at that.
Yeah, the book the art is really good. The consistent characters across the book representing each playbook or sometimes representing other characters as well um, is great for evoking the type of comic that it is emulating. Um, but I also don't think I think I've read it cover to cover once years ago. Um, Everything else since then has just been reference. As a reference book, I would say it's okay. I've read worse. I've experienced hypothetically better, but most of the games we've talked about when it comes to referencing has been less good.
Yeah, this is high praise,
Yeah,
but it was
middling is actually really
passable.
good now that I think
But
about
it was
it.
Yeah.
passable as a reference book. That's all we want. Just referenceable.
Like, I want to find something cool. It's pretty easy to find it.
I feel like our history with games makes that bar incredibly low. Like
That's true.
like we have had some really rough books.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of, like, when have I ever tried to find information in the full book and had trouble finding it? Not really ever. Occasionally, if I've been looking in one of the reference handouts, I might have been looking in the wrong one, but that's PDF file name problems, not really book layout.
I find that's for Powered by the Apocalypse games and everything that came after it. I feel like they fixed that, the book reference thing, with easy to read handouts that come out alongside the book.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how the book's laid out. Everything you need to know is on this other PDF of 5 pages, and that is laid out really well because someone is good at that. Yeah.
That's fair. Because, yeah, if you look at the playbooks themselves, in the book, the playbook sheets aren't in there. Just, they are not present in the book. You have to look at the separate PDF to get those. I think it works well, keeping all of that in mind, and our previous low bar with any game that was longer than 10 pages.
There's no stack of lists to go through, which has its pros and cons, but
The headers are good. Things are bolded when needed and in a different color. It's easy to skim, and that's actually very important.
The art's great.
The art's great.
Yeah.
Colors are good. I am more positive about this than I thought I would be going in, but it's all true.
yeah.
It's just a
Book
very
gets 2 thumbs
decent
up.
book.
Yeah.
Professionally done. Which, once again,
It's a very low bar for
very low bar, but it's good.
Yep.
It's almost underneath the ground. It's so low.
Yep.
Okay. Now for the 3 questions. I think we're ready to finish up. Before we do that, is there anything else we want to say about the game?
Could use more giant robots just baked into the core setting.
I mean, there's plenty of room for that.
Yeah,
they
a
leave
giant-
ample room.
If
for
you want to be a giant
driving.
robot, you could be a transformed, you could be a bull, you could be a
newborn?
Nova, you could be a
A
newborn.
newborn Optimus Prime.
Yeah, it's just Iron Giant. You're Iron Giant then. He literally
This
says, "I'm
exists.
Superman" at the end. Also, if anyone hasn't seen the movie, which I'm sure everyone here has, anyone
movie.
watching, it is legitimately a good movie that holds up today.
Yeah,
I mean,
I saw it not that long ago.
one of my favorite movies, Iron Giant.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I think the only thing I would say about masks is I want a Blades in the Dark version. Like, I want a Blades superhero game. Like, I just feel like that would be superior.
You said you were
think
reading
there is
Worlds in
one.
Peril, right? But it's a very different type of superhero game.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know if I want Blades superhero. I do want Blades
superpower?
supers.
Mm.
Like, there is supers, like, in the
Like
world.
Blades the Boys.
Not the boys, because that's specifically a weird takedown of superhero culture in general, but like Blades with superpowers, maybe not doing crime, maybe some other hook, but like Blades as a genre feels like it needs to be scrappier than the superheroes really lend themselves to. But Blades with superpowers.
Yeah, Blades Vigilantes exists.
Yeah.
I think
Might
that's
be
something
interesting.
that is interesting with masks is the powers really don't.
Oh no, the powers are a footnote.
You're limited to Power
Yeah.
Suit Playbook, but honestly, I would say forget that. Just take whatever power you want.
The game
because
says that.
powers do not matter.
The full book
Yeah.
says
I was-
that.
Completely
Yeah.
Yeah.
narrative.
I was dead.
Yeah, your power was that you were dead.
Yep.
I have black hole powers.
Was anyone's power... I don't think anyone played their powers exactly as they were in the book, were they?
I did, but my powers were boring, and I avoided them as much as I could.
Yeah. Okay. So if I'm remembering off the top of my head, the first question is, what is this game about? Which we've talked about incessantly. So do we want to skip this one?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
teenage superhero angst.
How does this game
Yep.
incentivize? Is it engaging what it's about? I believe. How does the game incentivize what it's about? Is what I'll paraphrase it as.
Clearing conditions.
Drama.
Yeah, but basically, what is your game about? How does your game do this? Like,
Yeah.
how does it reinforce it?
It tells you a bunch of things you can do to reinforce it.
I mean,
Some of them are interesting, and then some of them are ignore the thing we told you before.
just having playbooks makes the game do it, right? Because you are subscribing to a specific thing as soon as you pick a playbook.
Yeah.
You can't really go outside of that. That and the stats being I don't know how would you phrase that?
Labels?
Perceptions.
Yeah.
Like,
I think them being called labels is huge is the perfect term. Yeah. I think influence is really, really useful.
The influence really just...
I liked wielding it against you guys.
I was about to say, it feels like influence exists more as a bludgeoning tool than actual bludgeoning instruments in this game.
I think it's supposed to be. That's my interpretation of like, as I said, the GM prep is like take one label and another label and then just start pulling.
Yeah,
each
it also
character.
feels like every time an adult talks to you, you're just getting ready for a pop-up to appear in your like UI screen in a visual novel. Like these words struck home. What happens or whatever?
You're waiting for the time event.
It's the opposite, where you're always the character who says you will remember this when everyone else says stuff to you.
I think that it is intended as a bludgeoning tool. It is intended to pull you one way or another. I'm not so sure it feels good being the recipient of influence. It's fun, I find, when I'm pulling my teammates, but influence from adults,
yeah,
you really are waiting for it in every conversation, and sometimes I just want to have those conversations.
Yeah, and part of the, again, I don't think that's wrong. That is me playing it by the book. The book is like, never have an NPC do anything supporting without strings attached or influence used, basically. Everyone's a Simpsons character in that none of them are quite none of them are flawless.
But on the other hand, that genuinely makes you frustrated as a player, which it's supposed to do, I think, because teenagers are frequently frustrated.
Teenage fiction, any story with a teenager as the protagonist has been failed in certain ways by the adults that have, and that therefore means they have to be a protagonist now.
Yeah, because if the adults were functional and weren't ignoring them, old man Jenkins wouldn't be robbing banks from the ice cream store.
Yeah.
So, I think it makes sense, and I think the amount of frustration is based on taste and how much that is wielded. I have, in previous campaigns, had the occasional NPC sometimes go full support. I think Marissa still remembers one of her old character's stepmoms. Yeah. And it was great.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's supposed to be rare. And I don't think it ever felt narratively appropriate yet to have any adults be good, especially with the relatively grim world we created in Session 0.
Okay, yeah. Halcyon's too exciting for me, too lights on superheroes. So Session 0, I needed to put some clouds over Halcyon City.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, That's fair, and also it's fortuitous timing that Invincible season 2 and the new Boys season came out while we were playing.
True.
I'm probably not gonna watch either one, to be honest. I think Boys is
pretty
too
good.
much.
I liked Invincible.
Yeah, it's a little much.
They keep jumping more sharks. That's bothering me.
I have not watched The Boys, and I have no interest in watching The Boys, but
It's
I
got-
enjoyed
Weirdest-
Invincible.
The
Despite-
weirdest part is most people agree the Boys show is actually less ham-fisted than the comic book,
It is.
which is alarming because it's so ham-fisted that I don't understand how one could.
Oh boy.
It's very 90s. It's a very 90s comic book.
Okay.
All right.
So,
All right, so
who do we recommend this game for?
we missed the third question.
Oh
I
yeah.
thought that was it.
No, it's how does your game encourage or reward playing into the theme? My answer to this question is it fucking doesn't.
It doesn't. It encourages and incentivizes doing it, but doesn't reward it at all.
No,
The
I
game
think that's why I
reward
don't like this
is
game.
the drama. I think.
This is
Yeah.
why I like these questions, because it can solidify my opinion on a game. Like, this is the thing that's missing that makes me not fully like this game, right? It doesn't feed back into itself.
Yeah, I like my character the most, but I get to have all of the fun of figuring out how we joined the team, how our superpowers work, where we came from, and then we get some story into it, and then I'm not rewarded for playing into it, I'm rewarded for trying to solve the problems in the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
I love
only
this
real
game. I
reward
put
it
it-
gets for like feeding into the drama is taking away a condition. So
Yeah, you get
okay,
back to
good.
the
I get
norm.
rewarded for not having a negative modifier. That's my reward.
Yeah. No, I actually agree. Now that you bring up that perspective, it's completely missing positive reinforcement.
The only
Um,
positive reinforcement is a story that is hugely
Yeah.
interesting. That's got you very, very hooked, but that's not
It's not
in the
mechanical.
game. Yeah.
It can be juicy and very enjoyable, and that's kind of we'll get to who I recommend this game for, but it's gonna be that kind of player who
This is strictly a joke. They should have left in the sex moves.
that's Monster Hearts. Don't play Monster
I'm not
Hearts.
against that. I am not against that.
You have to reframe him for the teenage aspect of it.
Yeah.
Like, you can definitely reframe the mechanic, but some power that is strictly connected to
Intimate moments.
Intimate moments, story reinforcing moments, even if they're not.
Celebrating
I mean-
together as a team was what it was supposed to be, but honestly, it
Yeah.
wasn't highlighted
Team
enough
moves.
as a thing. The team moves, in my
Sharing
opinion.
a triumphant celebration or share a vulnerability or weakness.
I think those are its
think-
version of that.
But
Yeah,
it
but
needs
it's-
melodrama moves, right? Like it needs those soap opera moves that allow
Yeah.
me to influence does it a little bit, I
Yeah,
guess.
Provoke does it
Um,
kind of.
But share a secret about my evil overlord master or whatever. Yeah, that's one of my things, is share a secret about the weird laser monster.
Yeah. And then
Is my reward? I get to make him worse.
mine was if they need to stop you, how can they stop you? I was like, throw a black hole at me? I don't know.
I'm not bulletproof.
The team moves, I think, were the first thing that fell apart too when you started going slightly off type on the playbook. There were very, almost like Avatar, the moves themselves were hit and miss of, is this interesting to me? Is this not? Does that actually
Yeah.
work?
The game wants you
Yeah.
to play it straight, like completely.
I played it. Honestly, I think I played it pretty straight for the protege. I had a mentor
Yeah,
against
You killed
the
him.
in the epilogue, it doesn't count.
Yeah. The
Epilogues
only
don't count.
the only twist really is that I didn't super like him, but also that doesn't feel like it should be a twist for the protege, because you
Yeah.
get enough Robin to spend all the time yelling
Yeah,
that it should be fair game. It shouldn't cause me problems. Play that as the protege archetype, because that, in my opinion, is part of the protege archetype, and it more or less supported it, but until we got to the team move, where there was only one way if I wanted that team move, which is to care about them.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's it is a relatively inflex. The playbooks are very inflexible, more so than they seem. Not about the powers, but about the emotions of the character that you're making.
I almost
the
wish
character
wish the playbooks had different conditions.
I
That
would
would
have
be
loved that.
great.
There
Yeah.
is one
So, like,
that has an extra condition, I think.
Yeah,
just
newborn
wanna-
has damaged.
I want
Again,
different
making you a fucking robot.
Yeah,
Uh,
I want different lists for the different characters because I don't think the protege would ever be insecure. Like, that's never, in my opinion, not a protege feeling to have. Because you might be insecure, but like it feels like you have that fallback as the protege of Batman coming in and pulling you out at any moment. So there should be some like weird reckless feeling there instead of insecure, because that's what I think the rebellion of a
Yeah.
protege is like
Arrogant
I'm
could be
gonna
one instead.
I'm gonna go hog wild because Batman's gonna get me.
or pick your own
Man,
conditions in some way.
Jason Todd really took that one a little far, didn't he?
Yeah, he failed that role.
He failed that Batman will save me roll.
Yeah, that was a roll. Batman will save me. Yeah, oop, fail. Oops. I guess I
double
can.
ones.
I guess I can.
now
beat
I
the
know what a crowbar
crowbars.
tastes like. Cool.
Um, okay, so who do we recommend this game to? I would say if you are someone who likes emotional drama, both tension and catharsis, and you want a game to facilitate that, but the main focus is going to be the narrative and this type of narrative. That is who I would recommend this game to. Focusing on this game mechanically, as we have been doing here as part of the review, we're doing that more than I would through normal play.
Yeah, most definitely.
We're revealing many flaws to it. We're going over it with a flashlight and a magnifying glass. If you play this normally with the intent for that kind of experience, you will not either notice or care about these flaws, many of them, and I think you will greatly enjoy that game.
I very much agree with what Spencer said. It's a game for the narrative drama. Secondarily, it is a superhero game, but if you're not going into it for the drama, if you're going into it for superhero fights or feeling strong or feeling invincible, it's not that kind of game. Don't go into it for the superheroics. The superheroics are a background. If you know nothing about superheroes, it'll be a little bit confusing to you, but the drama is the point. Don't pick this if you want in-depth superheroes.
And to add on to that slightly, don't go into it if you're a problem solver. You will either have no fun in the game as you solve all the problems, or you will create more problems than you solve and be frustrated.
True. For me, if you're a fan of Young Avengers and Runaways, early Teen Titans, any of the Arrowverse stuff, and you want a game that feels like that, this is your jam.
Yeah, especially if you don't want to dig into the mechanics that much, and you just want. That's where I think Powered by the Apocalypse does shine for a lot of people, is that you don't have to dig into the mechanics that much. You could just hand wave on any of the advancement stuff too, and just not even worry about it.
Fast
And
pacing.
you have a framework to play your superhero game with, where you care about the interactions between the characters. That's great. There's a specific subset of people who play tabletop games and just don't even worry about the dice and like to just tell the story. This feels like a good place to tell that superhero story, where you get some tools to point you in in different directions. But I also don't have a good suggestion for a superhero game if you about superhero mechanics and stuff. And
I've heard other recommendations that I haven't played.
But quite frankly, I think that's a problem that can't be solved with superheroes. Like what I was saying with doing a Blades hack earlier, superheroes are not real people, and you like comic books, you care about comic book genres and stuff. You know the true answer to who's gonna win in a fight. It's what's the more interesting story point. and the superpowers are actually meaningless. Superman, or not Superman always wins, but like the hero wins or loses based on does the hero need to win or lose for the plot arc. The
Yeah,
superpowers
Spider-Man.
are
Does the
Yeah.
Hulk beat Thor, or does the Thor beat Hulk? It depends on whose name is on the cover.
yeah, so this game does that, and like you just need to keep that in mind that there is no way you could ever write a game where you can feel like a superhero and then care about the superpowers. Like if you're gonna write a game where you care about the superpowers, you're not a hero anymore. You're a super adventurer. You're a super powered vigilante or whatever. You have an equal chance of losing or winning. But this one is no, you win because the story says you win, or you lose because the story says you lose.
Yeah.
So you need to be cool with that mindscape of like, this is how the game's gonna work. It's what does the story need first? The game barely supports the superpowers. That's the answer to how, so we can skip how.
Yep.
Yeah. I would agree with basically everything. It's, do you like teenage drama? Play the game. You know, the superpowers are kind of like a backdrop. They make things a little interesting.
It's
Like,
the framing. It's the
Yeah,
it's
it's the
like
framing.
it's the onus to like act in the story is that there's super villains in the mall with you. They're tearing up Macy's.
Yeah, and your girlfriend just broke up with you, so you're sad. Now you gotta fight this supervillain.
Yep.
If you punch him through the makeup display, you will feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah, that's kind of it.
Unfortunately, you then see your her with her new boyfriend walking by the mall, running away from the villain, and you have feelings about that.
Yeah.
So grading? What
Yeah.
scale does anyone want to use?
4 to 5
I think we
conditions.
always-
I'm taking conditions. 4 to 5
Aw, dang
conditions.
Okay.
Um.
I'm going to use the CGC comic book grading scale. We'll give this game a solid 8.0. It's an attractive collectible with a moderate defect or an accumulation of small defects.
That's fair.
I
Straight
was,
8 out of 10. Oh, sorry. 8 out of
No, go
10
ahead.
for me. Love the game. It's one of my top 3 games that I've played of all time. Just, it has to be your taste.
Batmobile post Joker. It's not quite what you think it is. Some of the buttons don't work, but still Batmobile. It's from that one Batman movie where the Joker steals the Batmobile and messes with it. I don't know.
Was that
I need
the
to
penguin
watch
in
that.
Batman Returns?
You're right. It is the penguin, and he puts like rubber ducks all around it.
Yep.
I need to watch that from
Good
Batman
old Danny
Returns.
DeVito.
The
Yep.
Danny DeVito penguin's great because he like straps rockets to literal penguins that live in the sewers of Gotham. There's sewer
Mhm.
penguins
Sewer
for some
penguins,
reason in this
yep.
issue.
hmm That's great.
Best Batman movie.
Okay.
Do you have a serious rating system, Spence? Because I have a silly one.
I did 4. I told you I had 4 to 5
Oh, you
conditions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm giving it 1.7 dead parent backstories
Out of 2?
out of 2.
Out of 2.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
one parent dead, the other one
other
foot
one
the
in a
grave,
coma.
the other
Yeah.
one on a bottle of rye. Just
Yeah.
Yeah. Or they died and they came back to life. Now they're a villain. You know, classic,
Yeah.
classic superhero things.
My mom's a super vampire. Now I have to stop her.
so,
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the reason I always said that Cable should be way more messed up than he is. His mother died how many fucking times?
It's fair.
Okay. Those are our thoughts on masks. A asterisk recommendation.
Yes.
Is it perfect? No. Is it good? Yeah.
We are off next week, and the week after we will be back with a one-shot, probably of some kind. We're still talking about it, but for the summer, because people's schedules are iffy during the summer, we're probably going to be doing series of one-shots. So tune in for those.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you for watching.